In the summer of 1878, a Dayton saloon owner is having a nervous breakdown over a cigar box full of money. His name is James Jacob Ritty, born in Dayton in 1836 to French Alsatian immigrants, briefly a medical student, dropped out during the Civil War to run cafes and saloons. By 1871, he's opened the Pony House Tavern at 10 South Main Street. It's one of the most popular drinking establishments in Ohio. 300 feet of hand-carved mahogany, French mirrors, imported cigars, politicians and businessmen drinking pure whiskey at a polished brass rail, a line of thirsty customers that never ends, roughly $100 to $150 a day rolling across the bar. And he is going broke. The problem isn't sales. The problem is that every single dollar passes through his bartender's hands first, and a lot of those dollars never make it to him. There's no cash register. There's no receipt. There's just an open cigar box, a leather pouch, a trust system built on absolutely nothing. Now, merchants in the 1870s do have accounting. Double-entry bookkeeping has existed since the Italian mathematician Luca Pacioli wrote it down in 1494. But double-entry has a fatal flaw at the counter. It relies entirely on self-reporting. If the bartender doesn't write it down, it didn't happen. So picture the simplest theft in the world. A customer orders a whiskey, hands over $1. The bartender pours the drink, slides the bill straight into his apron, and walks away. There's no record. The inventory is slightly down, but in a busy saloon, pouring ounces of liquid and selling cigars by the handful, who's measuring? They called it skimming, or till tapping, and Ritty estimated it was costing him $10 to $20 a day out of about $150 in gross revenue. That's a 10 to 15% leak every single day. In 2026 money, somewhere between $3,000 and $4,500 a day in gross sales, with 300 to 600 quietly walking out the door in bartender aprons. Enough to kill the business, and enough, by the summer of 1878, to give Ritty what contemporaries described as a full nervous breakdown. So he does something dramatic. He boards a steamship to Europe to clear his head, and while he's wandering the engine room of that steamer, he notices a small device counting the revolutions of the propeller shaft. A machine, counting rotations, honestly, without pause, without judgment, without an apron pocket. And Ritty has the idea that will end up restructuring global retail. If a machine can count propeller turns, a machine can count dollars. He gets home. He and his brother John, born in 1834, a skilled mechanic, start building in a small workshop above the saloon. On March 26, 1879, they file the patent. On November 4, 1879, they're granted U.S. patent number 221,360 for an improvement in cash register and indicator. They call it Ritty's Incorruptible Cashier. It doesn't add, it doesn't subtract, it doesn't multiply, it does one thing. It uses a clock-like dial with two hands to record every transaction the bartender enters. The patent itself states the goal in plain language. Quote, a reliable and incorruptible mechanical cashier, which will register the exact amount of cash received during the day, thereby preventing errors and embezzlement by employees. A curator at the Spark Museum of Electrical Invention put it even more bluntly. Quote, the first cash registers did not add, subtract, or multiply. They were designed for one thing and one thing only, to stop bartenders from pocketing the money meant for the cash box. But Ritty is a saloon keeper, not a manufacturer. Running both businesses is breaking him all over again. In October 1881, he sells the entire cash register patent for $1,000. The buyer is Jacob H. Eckert, a Cincinnati glassware and china salesman. Eckert renames the venture the National Manufacturing Company. And by 1883, Eckert's engineers have added two things that change everything: a locked cash drawer and a mechanical bell that rings every single time the drawer slides open. Then, in 1884, a coal merchant named John Henry Patterson walks in. Patterson had bought two of these registers for $50 each for his general store in Colton, Ohio. That store, supplying coal miners, was clearing more than $50,000 in annual sales, and still losing money. $6,000 vanished over 3 years to employee theft and bad record keeping, roughly $180,000 in today's money. First year with the registers, the store swings from a multi-$1,000 deficit to a $5,000 net profit, a reversal of more than $10,000 off a $50 device. Patterson is so impressed he buys the whole company for $6,500 and renames it the National Cash Register Company, NCR. And here's where the .99 actually enters the story. Because Patterson's salesmen discover a loophole in the machine they're selling. If an item is priced at exactly $1 and the customer pays with exactly $1, the bartender doesn't need to make change. He doesn't need to press a key. He doesn't need to open the drawer. The bell never rings. The paper tape never advances. The audit machine just sits there. The dollar goes straight into the apron. Same theft as 1878, just standing next to an expensive new machine. So NCR salesmen, armed with the first formal sales manual in American history, the NCR Primer, and graduates of the first formal sales training school, start teaching merchants a trick. Don't price things at $1. Price them at 99 cents. Don't price things at $5. Price them at $4.99. Don't price things at 50 cents. Price them at 49. Because now, when the customer hands over $1, they expect a penny back. And to get that penny, the cashier must open the drawer. And the drawer is the trigger for 3 simultaneous mechanical events. 1. A metal indicator flag, they called it a tablet, pops up showing the price to both cashier and customer, a public, visible contract. 2. A continuous paper roll inside the locked machine, the journal sheet, advances and prints the amount in ink. 3. A hammer trips a brass bell. The owner, sitting in the back office, hears that bell. Every ring is a recorded sale. Every silence is a theft. The single penny of change is functioning as a key. It unlocks the audit trail. The .99 isn't psychology. It's a mechanical trap. At end of day, the owner unlocks the register with a master key, reads the total off the mechanical wheels, and compares it to the cash inside. Short the drawer, the cashier pays the difference. But there's a parallel story unfolding in Chicago at the same time, and it deserves its own beat. Meet Melville Stone, born in Hudson, Illinois in 1848, future general manager of the Associated Press. In 1875, Stone and his partners Percy Meggie and William Doherty found the Chicago Daily News. They price it at exactly 1 cent, a penny paper designed to undercut the 5-cent dailies. Problem: there are almost no pennies in Chicago. Shopkeepers round everything to the nearest nickel. You literally cannot pay 1 cent for a newspaper if there are no 1-cent coins in circulation. So in 1876, Stone gets on a train, rides to the Philadelphia Mint, and buys $1,000 worth of pennies. That's 100,000 individual copper coins, roughly 680 pounds of metal. He pays the freight to haul them to Chicago in barrels. Then he walks into the big Chicago department stores, Carson Peary Scott and the rest, and pitches them an idea. Drop your prices by 1 cent. A $1 item becomes 99 cents. A $5 item becomes $4.99. Every transaction pushes a penny into a customer's pocket. And what does that customer do with a fresh penny burning a hole in their hand? They buy a Chicago Daily News. The Daily News goes from a failing print run of a few hundred copies to 10,000 a day, then eventually to a peak of over 200,000 daily readers. So the .99 has 2 simultaneous origin stories. The cash register forcing the bell to ring, the penny shortage forcing change-making. Both arrive at the same number for completely different reasons. By 1896, John Wanamaker's Philadelphia department store is advertising a women's coat for 99 cents. It's a runaway success, the kind of stunt that puts the price ending on the front page. Through the 1920s, Macy's, JCPenney, and every major chain codify it as standard operating procedure. They call it just below pricing, or odd-even pricing. In 1932, economists Louise Bader and James Wineland published one of the first academic investigations into psychological pricing in the Journal of Retailing. Because somewhere in the transition between 1890 and 1910, merchants started noticing something the Rittys never imagined. Items priced at 99 cents don't just prevent theft, they outsell items priced at $1, even when nothing else changes. Even after the cash register has spread to every shop in America, and the bell is no longer a novelty. In September 1989, Dominic's Finer Foods in Chicago starts collecting granular scanner data across its stores. Millions of transactions, a database that researchers will mine for decades. A 1997 study in the Marketing Bulletin by Holdershaw, Gendel, and Garland crunches that kind of data and finds that 60% of all advertised retail prices end in 9, 30% end in 5, only 7% end in 0. In June 2005, 2 researchers finally explain why. Manoj Thomas at Cornell and Vicky Morwitz at NYU publish a paper called Penny Wise and Pound Foolish in the Journal of Consumer Research, Volume 32, Number 1. They call it the left digit effect. Your brain reads numbers from left to right, and it anchors on the first digit it sees. So 1.99 encodes in your head as $1 and change. 2.00 encodes as $2. Your brain treats a 1 cent difference as if it were a whole dollar tier shift. Thomas and Morwitz write, quote, "Nine ending prices may sometimes be perceived to be lower than a price 1 cent higher, when introducing a 9 ending causes a change in the leftmost digit. In other words, the trick is most powerful exactly when the cent reduction also rolls the dollar's digit down by 1, from $3 to $2.99, from 10 to $9.99. The penny does the heaviest possible lifting." And here's where it gets wild. In October 2013, a content lead at Gumroad named Travis Nichols runs the experiment on digital products. No cash drawer, no bartender, just a checkout button. At $1, the conversion rate is 1.88%. At 99 cents, 3.06%. At $2, 2.39%. At $1.99, 5.22%. More than double. At $5 even, 2.10%. At $4.99, 3.90%. An 85% jump in conversion off a 1 cent difference. Run the math on 10,000 page views. Priced at $2, you make $478. Priced at $1.99, you make $1,038.78. You lower the price by a single penny, you more than double your revenue. There is no cash drawer, there is no bell, there is no bartender. The 1879 trap still works. Nichols puts it bluntly, quote, "We know that $19.99 is essentially $20, but even knowing that doesn't stop us from, well, not knowing that." And the most uncomfortable part. A Wall Street Journal analysis of retail scanner data found that items ending in .99 are, on average, 18% more expensive than identical items priced with random endings like .87 or .93. The .99 ending isn't just a discount illusion anymore. It's frequently being used to mask price increases, higher margins, same psychological bargain. Now here's the final twist. Canada officially withdrew the penny from circulation in 2013. Australia did it in 1992. In both countries, cash transactions get rounded to the nearest 5 cents. If you buy a $1.99 item in Toronto with cash, you pay $2. The penny is physically extinct. And yet, walk into any Canadian supermarket today. Every price tag ends in .99. The physical reason for the digit is gone. The digit remains. Apple prices flagship iPhones at $999, not $1,000. Netflix prices subscriptions at $15.49. SaaS platforms anchor at $49 and $99 a month. Enterprise contracts that no consumer will ever see still end in 9. The FTC aggressively prosecutes drip pricing, hiding fees until checkout. But charm pricing? Completely untouched. Because it's technically accurate. The number really is 1 cent lower. James Ritty died in 1918, having sold for $1,000 the patent that built one of the largest corporations in 20th century America. His brother John died in 1913 in the same quiet position. NCR, the company that descended directly from that $1,000 sale, is today a multi-billion-dollar global enterprise. The brass bell Ritty invented to catch bartenders has long since gone silent. The cigar boxes are gone. The cash drawers are gone. The pennies, in much of the world, are gone too. But every time you tap a checkout button on your phone tonight and the price reads $9.99, you're hearing the echo of that bell. A 19th century saloon owner's anxiety, encoded into the architecture of how the human brain values money, 1 penny at a time.